Despite our best efforts to support him, loneliness swooped in and cast an almost permanent shadow over the final chapter of his life. Old age was undoubtedly a major catalyst for Grandpa's loneliness during those final years. In his book, Being Mortal, the surgeon and author Atul Gawande describes growing old as a continuous series of losses, drawing on Philip Roth's assertion that old age is not a battle, old age is a massacre. In the decade after Grandma's death, I watched Grandpa face that massacre, struggling with the loneliness brought about by those losses. In losing Grandma, he lost the defining, most significant, protective, and meaningful relationship of his life. No other relationship would ever compensate or come close. Gradually, his health and body deteriorated to the extent that he lost the capacity to engage with and reap from the world around him in the ways he had always done. He lost the sense that who he was, what he had accomplished, his narrative, or his identity mattered, and he felt forgotten. His friends, colleagues, and family members died with increasing frequency. He faced the predicament of how to exist in the world in a meaningful sense, without the things and people that had empowered him to do so for most of his life. To quote one older man who recently wrote me a letter, Grandpa became one of the thousands of older people who stumble off into the forest, never to be heard of again. During this period of Grandpa's life, our paths crossed in a way I could not have predicted. I was in my early 20s and feeling lonely myself. Lucy, my first love and childhood sweetheart for almost a decade, had left me. I'd had my heart broken for the first time, and it wasn't pretty. I'd been teaching a university class as a graduate student, and I'd noticed the not-so-subtle blinking red light on my large, not-so-subtle plum-coloured Ericsson R310 mobile phone. I had a few minutes before my class started, so I picked up my phone and looked at the message. It was from Lucy. "You're probably still in bed. I wish I was there with you. I can't wait to sleep with you again," she wrote. Huh? I thought. But she knows I'm not still in bed. I only said goodbye to her this morning, after breakfast. How can she possibly think I'm still in bed when she saw me leave? I reasoned. Then it dawned on me that the message wasn't intended for me, and my life as I knew it came crashing down around me in those few minutes before I started teaching that class. I taught the class anyway, and when I got home, our relationship ended, quickly and unforgivingly. I will never forget the moment I showed her the message, like a lawyer presenting her with the indisputable evidence. She looked at it in horror, realized her error, and in an instant, it was as though there was somebody else behind her eyes. I can't explain how I knew, but I could see that all of the love she had ever felt for me had drained out of her and would never return. She was somebody else now and would never again be the Lucy I knew. By default, I therefore couldn't be the same Sam. She left that very evening, and I sat in our flat with my first experience of how lonely it feels to lose your closest other. The upshot of this was that Grandpa and I became housemates for a while, because I also had to move out of the flat Lucy and I had shared. Why not, we thought. I had nowhere to live. He was rattling around in a big house, mourning Grandma. For different reasons, we'd both lost significant relationships in our lives, and were both feeling very lonely indeed. The scourge of old age had taken Grandma from him, and I'd had one of my first encounters with life's many jagged edges. Everything felt grey. What do you expect, I guess, if you put two people at different ends of the lifespan, both in the throes of grief, alone in a house together? I don't know what Grandpa did during the day, but I had to work, and I made the 2-hour round trip every day to teach classes at the university. Grandpa would be waiting for me like clockwork, at the same time every evening. He'd be pacing around the house in his slippers, shirt and tie, and maroon cardigan, looking out of the window, waiting for me to return so that he could begin the part of the day that I know meant an awful lot to him. In truth, he didn't really come alive until around 6:30 p.m. For the most part, our evenings consisted of the same routine. First, we would share a pot of tea and a plate of chocolate digestives in front of the fire in the living room. We sat opposite each other in large, high-backed armchairs. Neither of us ever felt like watching TV because there were too many reminders of people who felt happy, who still had relationship partners, and who we felt simply didn't understand our grief. TV isn't very sympathetic to grief, and Grandpa couldn't stand the idea of watching Countdown on Channel 4 without Grandma. There would be some small talk. Grandpa would ask me about my day, and I'd ask him about